All right, our next speaker. I can't say enough about this guy, actually. In the last 8 years, he's really taken the industry by storm. He is an entrepreneur. He's a coach. He's a visionary. He's a content creator. He is truly the thought leader in the industry. I mean, when people say that someone moves the needle, this guy is the needle. He is the president of Safe Harbor Insurance, the creator and president of Medicare Gurus, the creator of Medicare Con. Please give it up for our very own Medicare guru, Justin Brock.
This thing is weird. So, awesome, guys. I really appreciate you guys all being here. This has been a very humbling experience that so many people would show up. We didn't know how many people to actually get in the room to make sure that the attrition would, actually fill the seats, and I think we overbooked it. But the thing is, you guys are all so cool that you're okay sitting along the wall over here and in the back and everywhere. Just being in the room is so awesome because we've packed the room full of people who are all equally equipped to share information with each other even. And I don't know, how many people go to events regularly? Raise your hand. Okay, how many people, this is your first insurance conference or event? Oh, that's awesome. So the cool thing about events, and I encourage you to go to other ones. I started going to MedSup conference, SSBI's invitational. You had to be invited. Don't just show up to their invitational. They have to invite you. But other events, carrier trips, all kinds of stuff, and it's been the single most impactful thing for me is to get in the room with other people. Having people, come to our office, go into other people's office has been so awesome. It ended the burnout. Anybody ever experienced burnout in the industry? Okay, it ended the burnout for me to just start scheduling regular times to go places and do stuff and get in the room with other people. Because as soon as I would hit kind of that downward slope, I'd get in the room with other people and it would fire me back up. I think, man, Pete's doing great stuff. I would think, Ron Ray's doing awesome stuff. Josh Lustig, he's like 10 years younger than me and he's going to put me out of business, So I got to keep working and doing awesome stuff. So also wanted to take just a minute. A lot of people have been thanking me for the conference, but I want to thank some other people. I want to thank my wife, Tempest, who's back there peeking in. If she was mean to me, I would stay at home and cry. So she had to be nice to me to make this happen. So we all owe her a debt of gratitude. I want to thank Steven Martinez, who is basically, he does most of this. I just talk about stuff and throw ideas out, and he's like, oh, great, I got to make this work. I want to thank Sid, who's all the cool content that you guys see pretty much coming from Sid. And then I want to thank my whole team. Kelly's back there. She's like the workhorse of our office, so we wouldn't have any money to do stuff if we didn't have her. So give my whole team a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Another thing I wanted to say, because I didn't formally put it into our itinerary, was I wanted to thank sponsors. I wanted to thank several of them, and I'm going to do a terrible, you're going to have to tell me which ones I'm not thanking. But Innovative Financial Group was a sponsor that they're our headline sponsor. They're awesome. We've built a great relationship with them, great guys. And you guys got to hear Tyler talk about disruption. That's the longest acronym I've ever seen in a speech. So kudos to him for that. It was pretty cool. Also, we have Aetna here, one of our big sponsors, Elizabeth George, Kevin Moore. Please talk to them. Aetna in general, not one side or the other, has some prizes here that if you drop a card back there, they can give away. One of them is a pair of really nice Bose SoundLink headphones, pretty cool. And then some of the gift cards that we gave away earlier was from them, so that was really, really nice of them to bring that. So go say hi to those guys. Obviously, if you're in Medicare, Aetna is huge right now and only getting bigger, so they've been great. Mutual of Omaha was also a great sponsor for us this year. Bankers Fidelity, Corey is here and Ryan are here. They are awesome. Give Bankers Fidelity a round of applause. Americo, Andrew Costas is here. These carriers, it's great to have them here to build relationships with them because they genuinely care about your insight and they will take the insight back to product development, to marketing support, to everything they can do to support you. I've seen people in the industry talk about carriers like they don't care about the producers, and that's bull crap. I mean, I know that when you're really producing, they really care, and they care about what they can do for us to make our job easier, to make their job easier. So we're all working together. So give all those carriers a round of applause that are here. Pekin, too. Pekin and Heartland National. Oh my God, Nick Micheletti would beat me up if he brought Brandon Reed. They just tag team me if I didn't give them a round of applause. Great friends of ours. Heartland National and Pekin are both here, both sponsors as well. All right, I'll talk about some of the others that are here later when Stephen gives me that list and I don't butcher it. But without further ado, I'm going to get into trying to provide something of practicality. This morning when we tried to get our speaker lineup together, which Stephen pretty much did, but I tried to have some insight on what would be good for the itinerary, and I think what we decided was we wanted to get some mindset stuff going this morning, and I think Cody Askins is really good for that. So he did a great job, getting us in the right mindset, and then actually Tyler, really just piled onto that too about, setting the expectations of what we can do to create longevity in this business, not just doing something to get ahead today, not stepping on people's toes to get ahead, but what can we do to build a business that over time you can look back and be proud of. So that was great. Then we wanted to kick it off with an annuity panel. For me to first of all get up here and have some other people with me to get warmed up, because like Tyler, nobody likes getting up in front of a room. I was asked about 100 times if I was nervous because it's our first, large event to this size, and I'm speaking and all that. There's always some nerves to that kind of stuff, but I will say, because I look out and I know so many of you from either Facebook or in person, I have relationships with you guys, and I don't really feel that nervous because I feel like I have relationships with all of you. It's like talking to my friends about the stuff that I know the most about. So I appreciate you guys being here so much, more than you know. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here. So who has a physical office? Who has clients come to the physical office? Okay. Who has no physical office? Who's all virtual telesales? Okay. And who is a road warrior? Okay. There's no one way to do what we do. There's no one way. There's people that do things very successfully in all of those avenues. And so I am not, in no way, by going over Brock and Mortar, wanting to bore the people that, like Jackie, that is going to go virtual the rest of her life. But I do want to go over this because it has been a key topic that people want me to educate them on, and I think that it would provide value to many of you that are either in a brick and mortar location or trying to create one. So Brock and Mortar, that's the poltergeist. Brock and Mortar is a term that a guy named Zach Munger, who knows Zach Munger, aka Matt Foley. Zach Munger came to Tupelo. He wanted to come down and just kind of reverse engineer from the inside out our operation, and he does some business with us. And I said, Zach, come on down. And he came on down and he coined the term Brock and Mortar. I'd never thought of it. I'm not that creative. I'm like Tyler. I'm all DI on the disc assessment. I'm go and do, but I don't have the artsy stuff. That's why I hire that out. Yes, but okay. I'm sorry. I have to give credit where credit's due. Zach's wife Danny actually came up with it. Brock and Mortar. So every time I say it, I owe Danny Munger $5. So it's a royalty fee that we've worked out. But it's such a good term, it's worth paying for. So next slide there, Stephen. Brock and Mortar, there are 7 principles I want to go over, 7 rules to creating or starting a Brock and Mortar. And the first one I want to go over is utilizing national budgets to fuel your brand. You guys hear me talk about brand a lot. And I believe that in everything we do, we always need to be branding. Of course, we need to always be closing, but always be branding as well, okay? So, next slide, Stephen. So when I talk about national budgets, What do I mean? That could be a diverse topic. First little bullet point here, Joe Namath is not hurting you. It's not hurting you. You know, every one of you would have taken the Joe Namath commercial deal if it was offered to you, I assure you. So we're not going to be mad at Joe. What we're going to talk about is what the effect on our market was from Joe. And I want to start that by saying, how many of you had clients ask you about the Joe Namath commercial? We did. It was annoying. It was really annoying to hear all my clients be so confused over the last couple of years. And I'm sure that they will continue to use Joe because they've branded the guy. So he has, you know, it's continuing to create that confusion in my client base, but it's also creating confusion in the entire market. So all the people that aren't my clients have just as much confusion, and I am equipped better than anyone to help them through that confusion, right? So if you think about it from Joe Namath is not hurting you, there's a little bit of pain there because I'm having to answer all these stupid phone calls about things that, you know, yes, you're already on that plan, or no, that plan's not the best for you, or whatever the answer is. But there's also all that other confusion out there that you can capitalize on that he's creating. And some of those people are not going to call the Joe Namath commercial. So the second thing I say is the e-healths of the world. This is not a dig at e-health. Again, any of you that could wake up tomorrow and own e-health, nobody owns it, it's publicly traded, but if you could own 50% of the stock, we'd all own it. So we're not going to be mad at them. We're just going to talk about the e-healths of the world create a vacuum in the market that can only be filled with house-to-house brokers or Brock and Mortars. $5 to Danny Joe Munger. Brock and Mortars can fill that vacuum by giving someone an easy place to go and get the answers to those questions. And also, some of you guys that are road warriors are also providing that solution, because some of these people are not going to pick up the phone and call them, and even when they do, and they start reading that little compliance disclosure, they say, oh, crap, you know, and they're hanging up. If you're face-to-face, the compliance disclosure is not nearly as painful as it is when you call eHealth. If you don't, actually, if you are mad at eHealth, call them. All of you call them and pretend like you're a Medicare client. That'll tie them up and really show them. And then you'll hear that compliance disclosure. If you don't believe me, we have some good, funny recorded calls. We do that quite a bit. People print off content from my friends' nationally branded websites and bring them to me to help them decide on a plan. We have some friends in the industry that operate very large, successful practices on the chassis of a really good content-driven website. Who's heard of Boomer Benefits? Okay, they run an amazing website, right? There's so many people going to their website. If you go to look it up on like similarweb.com, it's like over 200,000 a month. And they're not writing all of that. They're writing a lot, but they're not writing all of that. Some of those people have literally printed off articles from Boomer Benefits or MedicareFAQ.com or Medicare.com or Q1 Medicare, brought them to my office and said, well, I was reading this and I needed your help signing up for one of these plans. So these companies that produce massive amount of leads can't possibly capture all the business that they're creating. And so it creates this vacuum I'm talking about. So next slide, Stephen. So I'm going to try to add in some practical steps to each portion on how you can solve this. So practical step number one, on principle number one, is when recording content, creating graphics, etc., make mention of some of these iconic commercials to give your audience a clear indication that you are standing out in the crowd. So what we like to do is make a little joke about the Joe Namath commercials. We have a little TV commercial running right now, and at the end of it I say, I know I'm not a professional football player or I can't remember what else I say. I know I'm not a professional football player, but please give us a call and let us help. You know, I make a little pun in there, right, in the content. We've done it on YouTube videos. We've done it on other stuff. And it makes those people laugh because, believe it or not, they see the commercials just as much as you are. It probably annoys them more than anybody else. And if you make content that feels local or feels real, like you're a real person, there's some people that look at Joe Namath and think, what does he know about Medicare, right? There's there's all these people out there. So you make that content that just kind of highlights that. Next slide. Practical step number 2, if you don't want to make mention of it, some people feel uncomfortable talking about that. So if you don't want to, then just be educational, make your content down to earth and local. Local feel wins in small to mid-sized markets. So for us, in Tupelo, Mississippi, how many people drove through Tupelo, Mississippi yesterday? Some people were telling me they did that. That's crazy. Well, you had to go out of your way for that, I bet. Tupelo is a small market, and in that small market, they don't want highly polished, ads. A lot of people just want to find the guy that's local. So you don't have to have the best camera. When we're creating content, a question we get a lot of times is, what camera do you use? What microphone do you use? What blah, blah, blah. And there's people that have never even recorded a video. I'm like, what are you typing this message on? An iPhone? That'll work. That's goofy. Okay, next slide. 2, you're not Gary Vaynerchuk. None of you are. Did you guys know that? You're not. Okay, so another thing that I see a lot of is people wanting to digitally marketing digitally. That's great. But first thing I'm going to say is the internet's great, but it isn't all that exists in the world. Gary Vaynerchuk likes to talk about, acting like all these other people that advertise old school ways are dying out and they're going away. Well, there's a couple of principles here that I think would prove in our market especially, but in all markets, there's always going to be markets for other ways to advertise besides digital. Next slide. Practical step. Go back one. There we go. First of all, your demographic demands a diverse array of advertising strategies. As Landon will talk about later, and what we do, we digitally market a lot, is whatever that means, really. It's such a funny term, digital marketing. But we do a lot of, things on the internet, Facebook, Google, YouTube, all that. But there's also TV, radio, newspaper, direct mail, billboards, wrapped RVs. I threw that on there because there's a guy out there in Utah that has one. I think it's cool, thinking about getting one. Just because what else? I've done all the other stuff. So, but this isn't a dig at Gary V. We're not talking about it. He's actually right in a lot of ways, but you're not Gary V. You don't have to, everything doesn't have to be this super automated, amazing digital approach where you get a lead and then it vacuums into a messenger bot and then they close it, and then the last question is, what is your bank draft info? And then you have to call them to take the signature and it's all done. Like, how many people have a process like that where they don't ever talk to the client and they're doing that? You wouldn't be here if you did, because you'd just be sitting there trying to scale that as fast as possible, right? So it's non-existent, really. There's always going to be a process in there where you're having to sell. So there's a lot of ways to get leads besides digital. There is no pie in the sky way to do things. Digital's great, but we want to mix it up. So you're not Gary V. We aren't in retail. It's the service industry with a middle to late age market. So a lot of times when he's talking about, other marketing like direct mail and things dying, he's talking about retail sales or, certain things like that. So it seems like there's a lot of people that are so fixated on digital, they're forgetting grassroots conceptual marketing. Anybody that's talked to Rebecca Davis, she's like the queen of grassroots marketing. So, you talk to her, and she would reiterate this, that there are other ways to get in front of people besides digital, even though digital's great too. Next slide. Practical step, buy or rent an office with great sign space and or curb view. So if we're getting back to thinking about the brick and mortar and how this relates to building a brick and mortar, if you do get an office, it's very important to not, I'm not telling you to go get like, a skyrise in downtown that costs you so much money you go bankrupt in 3 months. But get an office with a good location and or sign space. So the newest one we just got actually is right on Main Street, and it has a good sign like right on Main Street, and it's got a good parking lot and a good area where we're going to get a lot of traffic view. But the one we had before was on a decently trafficked street that really enhanced our the amount of people that saw where we were. Next step. Practical step number 2, outside that office, do something to get attention. Word of mouth over time will do the work, but at first, a WWIATM isn't a bad idea. Who knows what a WWIATM is? It's a wacky, wailing, inflatable arm tube man. Can't believe you guys don't know that. So, attention is the name of the game when you're doing the Brock and Mortar. You want people to know where your office is. If you're advertising in different ways, you still want them to be riding by and be like, oh, that's those bozos that keep sending me mail. There they are. The more people that know where you are, the better. And the wacky, wailing, inflatable arm tube man. Who's watched Undercover Billionaire? Does anybody watch Grant Cardone on there? And he started talking about it. And it was funny to me because it's so true. So many people get fixated on digital marketing that they forget that they could put a sign up and it would at least help, right? So anyway, we're actually thinking about getting one of those 100-foot gorillas until the people that own the building we're in get mad. But we're going to try it anyway. Number 3, educate, and then educate, 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 educate. So part of branding for us has always been educational. Next step, educational seminars, educational webinars, TV commercial segments that educate, radio shows. This says a lot of stations will give you weekly segments for like $500 a month, little small segments. Even graphics can be educational, give away information on the front end. So what we're talking about here is find ways to market to be educational. You can do it on Facebook very easily. You could start seminars very easily. We actually had not been doing seminars, but we have, as of late, we have very, very effective and a great way to get in front of people that, you know, now they know where you're at and you're driving people to your office with these educational seminars. Also graphics, if you're doing direct mail, a lot of you probably order direct mail leads that are like business reply mail cards, and there's no branding to that. And I'm not saying it's not working, and I'm not saying not to do it, but if you can send out direct mail that has your branding on it and maybe some education or even like trifold letters that educate turning 65s, things like that, I think there's a lot more of a long-term, long-term success rate in building your brand that way and driving awareness to where your office location is. We are in a thank you economy. People appreciate information on the front end. So there's people giving out so much free information that you do have to give out some information on the front end now almost to get any significant amount of business. You can't just be the guy that used to say, well, I know Medicare, so you got to see me. Well, there's a lot of us, you know, and we have to give out that information. We have to put it out there in order to get that. So one of the guys that we have a downline agent that for years has been sending a tri-folded 3-page letter to like every turning 65 person in his state all the time. He's sending it every month. He's sending out a batch of them. He's been doing it for years, the same exact letter. He hasn't hardly changed a thing except for numbers. And I know one thing about marketing. Anytime somebody does something for years and years and years on end, it must be working or they're an idiot. So anyway, he's probably getting he's in our downline. So we know he's doing some good business, and that's pretty much the only marketing he's doing. But the letter is very educational. It's got his picture on there, his brand name. He's actually very well branded in the market. You know, people come in even in our office. He's in our state, and he lives 4 hours away, and we still get people coming in and dropping his name all the time, and he's very well branded. Sometimes they, just like the website, they bring the letter to us, though, because we have the Brock and Mortar location. So anyway, next slide. Practical step, start with seminars. So I will say I'm a little bit hypocritical in this because we didn't start this way, but just from our recent success with it, if you're starting with a Brock and Mortar location, you want to drive awareness to where you are, and you need to get in front of people. This is an extremely cost-effective way, and you could probably get some support potentially from local MA carriers that are trying to expand in your market. We have been able to do that. I won't say which carrier right now, although they like the color purple, and they've been very helpful in this process for us. They're trying to expand in our market, and they've been helpful in the seminar process, helping offset some of the cost. And that's great for some people that are starting up. You know, of course, they're going to expect some production in return, so you can't just feed everybody and not bring anything back to the table. But if you start with the seminars, I really think that's a great way to start driving location. Now, what we do, you see here, you get the permission to contact forms in an educational webinar. You're not selling anything there. You're just educating, providing a meal, you know, hanging out, making friends, getting permission to contact. And then when we call them to set up the appointment, we're trying to drive traffic to our office location. We're not trying to close it over the phone. Now, if that's what they want, of course we'll do that. We're not stupid. But We want them to come to our office because in our experience, the people that come to our office refer more people to us. They come in, it's professional. We all have individual offices. We have advisors. It's a real business. And by doing that, it creates like just a level of confidence that if they refer other people to you, that those people will almost be impressed by their referral. If somebody just knocked on their door out of the blue from Banker's Life, nothing wrong with that company, but that's what they do a lot. They just knock on the door. I imagine they have a harder time getting referrals because people don't want to say, well, this guy just stopped by my house and I can't remember his name, but he signed me up for this plan in, and I guess it's good. Do you want this creepy, sweaty guy to stop by your house next week? It's just it's different, and now some of the, Bankers Life agents aren't all creepy, sweaty dudes. That's probably bad for me to say, but whatever. In fact, set up as many appointments in your office as possible. So to extend that past seminars, just want to drive that point home. We're always trying to set up appointments in the office. We will sell over the phone. Most of you that have seen me talk about stuff in the past, we will sell. We are probably half and half on production, telephonic in the office, but we try to do a lot in the office if we can because it does seem to warrant such a larger amount of referrals. So, next slide. 4, everything you do, advertise the idea of walking on in the office. I'm beating a dead horse here, but we want to advertise the office location. So every time we send a mailer, I want them to know, visit us at our office, 144 South Thomas Street. We even talk about things like near Harbor Freight, right next to Merrill Lynch. We say things like that to just constantly advertise the location. I believe in you have a branded brand, so a lot of you have like a business like Senior Benefits or, Senior Security Benefits, Innovative Financial Group. These are brands in themselves. It's a branded house. I learned that at a Manhattan Life training with Galen here. A branded house versus a house of brands. But I believe in that big mother brand like that, but you can also brand a location and you can brand a person. I believe that I'm a branded person because I've constantly done content with me, Justin Brock. So it's inundated, so we get referrals. A lot of times it'll come to me personally because I'm branded as the advisor. Then we have a business name locally that we use, and that's branded as well from all the logos and branding and content. But the location can be branded. I imagine when you think about, some businesses in your hometown, you could think of some that are very heavily branded that everybody knows where they are. In Tupelo, I don't know if Pete saw Pink Pete. I'm going to say pink in a minute. Pete saw the big pink building in Tupelo when you were there. In Tupelo at Crosstown, right in the middle of in town, there's this pink building. And for 30 years, it's been a hot pink building called Costume World. So the other day, I was trying to drive this point home to my crew, and I said, if any of you had to get a costume right now, where would you go? I said, Costume World. I doubt if it wasn't hot pink that everybody would know. I wouldn't know what the hell was in that building. It's just because it's hot pink, you're like, what's in that building? There's actually a landscaping company in Tupelo that has all these Dodge Ram trucks, and they're hot pink as well. It's like the people that own it or whatever, I don't know any of them, but everybody knows the Pink Truck Company. They even made their website like pinktrucks.com or something like that. So it does help to do some of those things, and I'm not saying you have to make your business a caricature or be goofy, but you can over time brand your location where people remember it. So when they say, you should go visit that Justin Brock guy or the Medicare Gurus, you should go see Bobby Brock Insurance or whatever they're going to refer to us as. Rob makes fun of us because we've changed our name so many times. But when they say, you should go see Medicare Gurus, where are they? I don't know. They're not going to say that about us. We've always talked about it, If I said, how do you get a hold of J.G. Wentworth? You guys would all know. 877-CASH NOW, right? Just we're always reiterating it. It's subconsciously branded, right? So next slide. Practical steps. Staff the location 40 hours a week. Hire a receptionist and have them call your clients to set up reviews in your office. get as many people in your office as possible to create word of mouth. So when you're first setting up an office, if you haven't set up one before, or if you have one and you just haven't done it appropriately yet, it has to be staffed all the time. An office is not, I see a lot of people that are like, okay, I got me an office, it's $300 a month, it's in the basement of some old lady's house, and I'll meet people there if they want to meet me there on Tuesdays at 9. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? I'm talking about getting one with a professional receptionist, it doesn't have to be huge, but just have a nice place, and it always needs to be staffed, even if you can't be there in the beginning. Because when people do walk in, you definitely don't want to not be there, And also, a lot of people say, well, I'm already having to buy an office or rent an office. Now I got to pay this lady. I don't know what she's supposed to do. Or it can be a guy. That's sexist. It doesn't have to be a lady. It could be a guy or whatever. But you get the person in there that's calling your clients that you already have. You might have, maybe you have 200 clients, 300 clients, 400 clients. Let's call them and set up reviews in the office. Why? Because I want them to come to the office to know where it's at. So when they refer people to me, they know how to refer. So most of you, if you're like a road warrior, sometimes you have a hard time getting referrals. You'll get referrals, but I bet you could get more if they knew how to get a hold of you better. So a lot of times you leave a card or you leave something that hopefully they hold on to, but if they lose it, they don't know. But if you have a branded location, it's the office over by Merrill Lynch on Thomas Street. It's the office, whatever, that helps people get in touch with you. You want people to be able to get in touch with you as easily as possible. Next slide. 5, allow time to work. Obviously, branding takes time. Branding a location, branding a name, branding anything. And so if you build it correctly, over time they will come. That old quote, if you build it, they will come. It's not really true. You could build something and they wouldn't come. But you got to build it the right way and put the time in and all that and the effort and the energy. So if you build it correctly the way I'm talking about over time, it will work. So what I'm trying to get you to do is not think about the tomorrow as much as the 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. This is a practical concept that as you're successful with how you're doing business now or another way or whatever, that you can hedge into that will create a long-term, very, very successful, practice. It's not something you can just throw up overnight and it works. You do have to allow time. Next slide. In the meantime, you got to keep putting food on the table. So if I'm somebody that runs business reply mail cards, like how I started out, and mine were business reply mail cards that were for overpriced med subs to help shop med sup rates. That's how I started off. I was making money doing it. It was working. As I began to hedge into other practices, I never once thought, okay, I should just stop doing what's working now and focus solely on this. You had to do a little bit of both. So when I say you have one strategy that's working and you don't have an office and you decide, you know what, I want to build this long-term brick and mortar that Justin's talking about, you have to keep doing the other thing too. You have to keep making money come in so that you can support the long-term concept. You have to have something of substance that will, stand the test of time. So I've seen a lot of people set up brick and mortar, not staff it, not advertise it, not try to meet people there, and or quit doing what was working before. So transformation in your practice takes time. That transformation from, road warrior, telesales, whatever, and by all means, you can keep doing those forever if you want to. But a lot of people want to transition to something that I can have that office, people are coming, now I can begin to build a team, I can start to build myself out of the day-to-day operations of it so I can focus on some other things and scale, all those types of things, right? So that takes time. Next slide. Practical steps. What was working before? Direct mail, seminars, cold calling are all low barrier to entry. They could be things you want to become unnecessary or supplementary in the future, but do not stop bringing in new business while your brick and mortar is building. Another $5 to Danny Munger there. Next slide. You need a reaper. So when I was writing this, I said I used the term reaper because I remembered when I was 6, I grew up in this town. I didn't grow up in Tupelo. I grew up in this little town called Marietta. There's 900 people there. Not Marietta, Georgia. That's much bigger. This is 900 people. I lived next to a pea farmer named Billy Joe Barnes. And when I was 6, Billy Joe Barnes, I'm from Mississippi. His name was Billy Joe Barnes, okay? He had a lot of barns. But when I was 6, my mom worked for the city and my dad was a carpet salesman at Sears. And in the day, in the summer, I would go with Billy Joe Barnes and pick peas in the field all day long, and I thought it was cool back then. Of course, I didn't have to work very hard. I was 6. I was like a, grandchild or something. But I would earn my cheeseburger every day, right? Well, one of these days, Billy Joe, after a while, bought a reaper. That's what he called it. I don't know what the actual name for it was, but he would just drive through the fields now and just harvest the whole thing. And he didn't need me anymore. So that's how I got so skinny back then, because I lost my cheeseburgers every day. And but there is a point in any farm or any business where you have to increase your sales team. So my reaper here, I'm talking about my sales team. Next slide. Build your team. The initial investment in the Brock and Mortar was signage, a receptionist, rent, effort, time. That's it. You have to have the office. It's going to cost, it's going to cost a little bit to get the office. You have to have signage. You have to have a receptionist you're paying the rent for the office location, and then it just takes effort and time. Now, over time, if you've gotten to where you're filling up your schedule, you have some people coming in. Now you want to scale that and begin to build a team, because ultimately the goal for a lot of people, I would think, is to build yourself out of having to do all of the day-to-day grind. Maybe build yourself into the advisor role where you're doing the annuities or the higher commission per application products, or maybe you want to build yourself completely out of it and sit at the beach while other people run the operation. Whatever you want, this is the way you have to scale through this process. It takes time and effort. Now, if you've done what I told you, it's time to build that team. This is perhaps one of the most difficult and rewarding tasks. It's very difficult to find the right people on a team. It's very, very difficult. And it's also very rewarding, because when you find somebody who is underappreciated or they don't realize their potential and you see it come to fruition and their life change, it's extremely rewarding. Next slide. Practical steps. Hire them fast, fire them fast. Who's heard that? A lot of people say it. I know if you own like a big call center or something, there may be some practicality to it. I say it's wrong. I can't do it. I don't like it. I don't like firing people. It sucks. I think if you like firing people, you're probably a real asswipe. So no, that's not what we do. We're going to be very selective. We're going to find people who do not understand their full potential and help them realize it. That's what I like to do. So I'm not looking for who's got an MBA. I need somebody on my marketing team who's got a bachelor's degree in marketing. That's pretty worthless to me right now. I love finding the guy that doesn't realize what's possible and help and show him. Because when you can take that talent and pull it out of somebody and see it, that's very rewarding. It actually, for me, became more rewarding than selling insurance itself. Selling insurance still pays the bills and all, but I was like scaling out of it and watching that. It was a very rewarding experience to do that. And there's just a ton of people that are out there that didn't grow up with they didn't go to medical school, or they didn't do like all the perfect things from the get-go. And the insurance industry is a great way to pull them in and be like, yeah, okay, you didn't make like all the practical steps, at this point, but you're still extremely talented, extremely smart. Let's give you a platform to really show the world what you can do. And the insurance industry is great for that. And if you can build a business, that's great to pull people into for that too. It's awesome. So we've all talked about our whys. I can tell you that one of my biggest unrealized whys was culture and cultivation. Bringing those people in, cultivating it, and creating a culture that people wanted to work for. It's been really awesome. Next slide. 7 steps. 7 is everything else. I can't tell you every single intricate little detail of what I do in my business in a presentation like this. I tell a lot. I think most of you would say that Galen says I tell too much. I share too much. I share a lot. I do share a lot. But I wanted to give this overview so it does take time. There are hard parts of things, but there are things that you can do that make it easier over time. We've made a lot of mistakes over time. We spent a lot of money and time making these mistakes, so we know a thing or two about it. So practical steps, the best thing I can do for you is hold your hand through the process. We've spent a lot of time and money paving the way. doing things the hard way so you don't have to. So we did create 3 programs or 3 ways over time that we can try to really, really share the information in detail, one-on-one or very, very, exclusively. So next slide. So you can go to that. Anybody that sees it's in the back of your program, it's a QR code. If you don't know what a QR code is, you put your camera on it, it pops up a website. It's really cool. All the restaurants are doing it these days, the cool restaurants. But you can also just go to medicare.academy/Brock and Mortar, and it will also show you this concept. So we come up with a few programs to offer, and whether or not anybody does these programs, we have several people in here that are in one of them. It's the Medicare Monsters program. It's just an ongoing success and coaching program that we go into these details on Brock and Mortar, telesales, whatever we're doing, and we bring in experts to help shed light on topics that maybe we don't even understand yet. We always learn together. Who in here is in Medicare Monsters? Oh my goodness. Who in here likes it? It's about the same number of hands. We're doing okay. So Medicare Monsters is one of those programs. We're doing another offer where we actually have people like Zach Munger came in and did a private one-on-one training for 2 days and came through all of our stuff and basically sat with all of our employees and just kind of sees it from the inside out. I found that to be extremely helpful for people because they get to really figure out what questions to ask. I joined the Marine Corps a long time ago, and people asked me if recruiters lied to us. And I said, I don't think so. I just didn't know what questions to ask them. And that's the same way, a lot of times you guys don't know what questions to ask me, but if you were actually in the practice and seeing it work, I don't even know what answers to give you because there's so many answers. Sometimes you just have to see it from the inside out. And then in September, we are doing a thing called we've changed the name to it a lot. I love name changes. The pre-AEP roundtable, or behind the agency event, where we're going to have 15 people come in and do a multi-day event in Tupelo, the big city of Tupelo. So you have to fly back into the beautiful city of Memphis and drive on down I-22 to Tupelo. Pete's driven that route before. It's a nice route, isn't it? It's lovely. But you come on down, and we'll actually get to see from the inside out what we do, and that would really, really give you a lot closer look to what we're doing. So we'd love to have you if any of you are interested in any of that. If you have more questions, of course, you can come up to me, and I'll probably tell you everything anyway, just in person for free, because that's what I do. But you really do get a lot more, impact, I think. And if you want to ask somebody that's done it before, Zach Munger will tell you it's a cool deal. You really learn a lot of things you didn't even know you needed to learn by seeing all the mistakes that we've made and corrected over time. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow and as this goes on. But we have a lot of really good speakers and a lot of good people here to communicate with. So I don't want to take up any more time. I hope the Brock and Mortar concept is helpful. I think I owe Danny $85, $90 now, something like that. We'll settle up later. I hope you were keeping tabs on it. So, but if you have any more questions for me, please come to me afterwards. If you have any questions that are really, really detail-oriented and technical, ask Stephen. So, all right, guys, thank you so much.